We are who? We are what? Vibrant. We are who? 50 plus. Hi, welcome to Gray Lives on the Rise. I am your host, Professor Jamila Franklin, and we are coming to you from Oyende Enterprises, being sponsored by Jamila Sense, which is our product line of aromatherapy products that helps heal the mind, body, and soul. And we are bringing to you Alamaj's rebirthing program, as well as Jamila Sense, and a host of wonderful programs that will help heal your body, heal your soul, and heal your mind. 50 plus people, we are here to stay. Gray Lives on the Rise. We are what? We are who? We are vibrant, and we are here to stay. Join us for our wonderful episodes. Thank you, and continue to look for our episodes weekly, being brought to you again from Oyende Enterprises and Jamila Sense. See you soon. Hey everyone, how are you? This is Professor Jamila Franklin again with another episode of Gray Lives on the Rise with the beautiful Raiysa. And I'm going to bring her on momentarily. In the beginning, though, I'll always introduce myself. I'm Professor Jamila Franklin, the founder and CEO of Gray Lives on the Rise. And see my shirt? Yes, it comes from our wonderful online store. And Raiysa has ordered her mug recently, so it hasn't arrived yet, but she has ordered it, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. So, Gray Lives on the Rise came about a year and a half ago. I was walking, and I got this download from Spirit that said, there's nothing that deals with people that are 50 plus, and why don't you consider it? And I said, that's true. When I thought about it, the only things that came to mind were AARP and Medicare. And none of my friends, including me, fit those stereotypes. We don't have a cabinet full of prescription drugs, and we are not feeble. So I said, okay. And then we started thinking about how I could really revision this. And I said, yeah, let me just start with the names. We're not old. We are seasoned. We're mature, and we're vibrant. Okay? We're not elderly or seniors, nothing like that. So I just started thinking about a lot of other things. And then these other downloads from Spirit, what people call God or Yahweh or Jehovah, kept coming in. And the way that it came in was so perfect. First, the name, Gray Lives on the Rise. Because at first I thought about, gray lives matter. Then I said, no, that's cliche-ish and it's overused. And then I said, okay, let me think some more. And then Gray Lives on the Rise. Lives rhymes with rise. And I said, that's perfect. And the other thing I thought about was, in terms of getting the name out there, because rather than just setting up the podcast, you can do a podcast. They come and go. I had a blog talk radio show about 5 years ago. And it was good, but people don't really remember it because I didn't have anything else connected to it. So I said, okay, the slogan, Gray Lives on the Rise, and then the store, which holds our merchandise, was important because people deal with brands. They like seeing things and it sticks within their consciousness. They keep seeing things over and over again. So like I said, my shirt, Gray Lives on the Rise, go to our store and you can see it. We have mugs, we have computer stickers, we have mats, we have a lot of different wonderful things to really talk about this concept. And so also this energy said, make it global. It's not regional, it's not local, it's not even national. It goes all the way around the world. So I have had people on from Australia, Serbia, Eastern Europe. So it's a global movement, and it's doing very well. And my background is I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I have taught psychology at the college level. I have my own institute. I'm a holistic health practitioner and a spiritual life coach. And I also specialize in healing ancestral trauma. That's one of my things now that I'm focusing on. So I do a lot of different things. But today we're going to have Raiysa come on, but then our underwriter is my company, Jamila Sense. And we have Peace Be Still. It's always interesting trying to get the center. Peace Be Still, which is amazing. And it's great for getting rid of stress, anxiety, depression, PTSD. I'm just showing you how to use it. It's all natural. I created it, and it's amazing. If you have any stressor, it gets rid of it. So you just put 3 drops in your hand, rub it together, breathe in. Oh my gosh. Oh, like Zen. And then you can rub the rest on your arms. And during the summer, it gets rid of flies and mosquitoes. They won't come near you. It's all natural. And Raiysa has bought one. She's one of my clients. She's bought her own bottle, and it's all natural. Thank you. And it does the job. So, having said that, and you can go to my website, Oyinde Enterprises, Oyinde Enterprises, ENTERPRISES.com, OyindeEnterprises.com. And you will see Jamila Sense, you will see Gray Lines on the Rise, you'll see my courses. We have an array of things that you can see. Okay? All right. Now, having done the promotional part, and contact me too for services. All my services are listed. I'm a Reiki Master, certified aromatherapy, certified Reiki Master, certified metaphysician, a holistic life coach. It goes on and on and on. But go to the website, okay, to get more information. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Miss Raiysa Nazaire. Raiysa is an author, speaker, thought healer, and mental health educator who helps children and people enhance their lives one thought at a time. And her goal is to start a conscious revolution for a change in thought. Raiysa guides us past the stigma of dense emotions we so often get trapped in with compelling and refreshing perspectives. Because that's really important, because sometimes we get caught in our own emotions and in our own heads, and we stop our progress. Not intentionally, but we just do. And she's excellent in helping you get past that. As founder of the Young Tiger Foundation that addresses the tragedy of suicide in young Black males and the trauma experienced by the surviving family and friends, Raiysa works to highlight the fact that addressing one's mental and emotional health is just as important as maintaining physical health. And I'm so happy about that, because now people are beginning to do that. 10 to 20 years ago, especially within the African American community, it was taboo. People didn't want to talk about it. They just felt like if they talked to their friends, it would be okay, or talk to someone in the clergy. And we're finding out that no, you need to really talk to someone who's trained to help you. So her first publication, Leaping Over the Hurdles of Life, A Tiger's Journey, is a biography of her son's life and struggle with imbalance. The second work, Balance is a Juggling Act, guides one to rethink how they think. Last year, she released a third book, Everyday Emotional Vocabulary That Shifts the Kaleidoscope of Your Perspectives. In October 2024, she will release her first children's book, Jordan's Journey to Emotional Island. And she has the book with her. She's going to read from it, and she's going to show you what it looks like, okay? She holds a BS in Business Administration from St. Paul's College, an MS in Project Management from Boston University, and is a certified life coach, as well as a project management professional. Her motto, information transformed to knowledge is power, which is very true. We can survive anything if we have the wisdom that allows us to make higher choices. And our episode today is titled Eternal Flow to Master Your Thoughts. Okay, so I bring to you now Ms. Raiysa Nazaire. So Raiysa, let's talk a little bit. I'm so proud of you in terms of the number of books that you have written and published, because I know you have done some amazing things in terms of your professional life. And how do you find time to write these books? Because as an author, I know it takes time. So how were you able to carve out that time?
It definitely does take time, and then it takes willingness in order to make the time. And the key is to be consistent, right? So when you're writing, you have to carve out that space. I mean, even if it's only a half an hour a day, you have to say, I'm going to take this half an hour. And even if my mind goes blank, I'm going to sit down and either I write on a computer. Some people do better by
Yeah.
they have more flow, but I flow just typing into the computer. So I sit at the computer and what comes out comes out. And if nothing comes out, then I just start typing about what I think and then bounce off of that so that I can start to write something. For me, sharing is so important. So whatever
Mm-hmm.
information that I get, I want to share it with people. Just like when I found out about um, the basics of emotions and dealing with our emotions because of the death of my son. It was just something that I had to share.
Mm-hmm. But I commend you, because I know that must have been a very painful and traumatic uh, episode in your life, because parents never think that they're going to have to bury their children. They think that they would predecease their children. So if you feel comfortable, do you mind telling us about that period in your life,
Oh,
what
most
transpired?
yes. So, and of course, we don't think that we're going to have our children pass before we do. So it always
Mm,
comes as a shock, right?
mm,
So for me, personally, it was about learning more about how to deal with that pain and how to move through it that helped me to actually get through it. So I took those learnings and applied them to myself. The
mm-hmm.
book Leaping Over the Hurdles of Life, it's really sharing what my son went through and
Yeah.
showing and modeling what it actually looks like. The book is a biography of his life, and it shows that the different points that he experienced the distress or mental distress, emotional disease, because it is a disease of the mind, and which shows up as disease in the body, right?
Mm,
But for me, my saving grace was actually practicing what I was learning.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right.
Well,
Mhm.
in terms of that, were you a member of a support group, and were there any warning signs?
For my
But
son,
yeah, for your son.
yes.
Mhm,
And that's one of the things that I show in the book. The warning signs were that he was like he would react irrationally to an incident that you might think is minor, but he would have a major overreaction, whether it's anger or to the level of extreme rage. He was very reckless. He would drive fast. Um, and at one point he was drinking too much. Those are all
mhm,
signs that a person is depressed or at dis-ease with themselves. They're experiencing this balance and maybe even having suicidal ideation. And
mhm,
there was another point where the last day that I saw him, actually, he began giving me things. And that's another sign when people start giving away their personal belongings, or they start talking about, well, what if I wasn't here? Maybe it would be better if I wasn't here. Did you ever think about that? If they ask you questions like that. So those
mhm,
are all warning signals that when when you don't know the signs and the symptoms, that you may not be aware that those things are happening. And sometimes those signals are given to different people versus all of it being enough information for one person to put together. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what happened in the case of my son. So one person saw the side of him that was drinking too much or hanging out too much. Another person saw
Mm,
how recklessly he was acting. And then, I saw that he was depressed, but I come from that school of, you move through it, get over it. And,
mm-hmm.
and that's not the case when you're dealing with a major dis-ease of the mind, because your mind is actually in a do loop and it's repeating a cycle of
Yeah.
um, whatever those negative thoughts are that are coming to mind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I can't win, nothing I do matters, I just keep failing. All of that negative do loop is on repeat. And it's like a record that's stuck in a groove. So for a person who is in that state, it takes some external force to come in to help them to get out of that. It's not, oh, just get over it.
Right, right. And a lot of times too, with males, people tend not to show them grace,
Right. Not.
because you just tough it out, stick it
Mhm.
out, you don't cry, all those kinds of things are not shown grace and not
Mhm.
given the space sometimes just to be with their feelings. So, but I thank you for sharing that. And you, like you said, wrote a book regarding that, chronicling what had happened. So people in the audience who have children or other relatives who may be struggling with depression or suicidal ideation, I think her book would be extremely helpful. And what's the name of that particular book
Uh,
again?
Leaping over the hurdles of life, a tiger's journey.
Okay, that specific book would be very, very helpful for
Mhm.
those of you, because I know there are people out there who may see some signs and they don't know
With those
how
signs.
seriously to take it, because people say, oh, they get over it, because we, as a culture, and people in this country have not been really skilled in terms of how to diagnose, or not even diagnose, how to recognize
Mhm.
suicidal ideation, because people push it under the rug. They don't talk about it. That and depression, they just don't talk about it. They're beginning to talk more about it, but years ago, I know when I was growing up, it was just something you just didn't talk about. It's just like,
Yeah,
just
it's
suck it up
and,
and you go through it.
and because it's reached an epidemic level, and you see it more
Yeah,
often with celebrities,
yeah,
it becomes something that is now allowable to talk about it. And you have celebrities who have foundations around suicide awareness and prevention, which does help get it out to the public and make it more acceptable to talk about. So I'm happy that we're in a time where it is being talked about more, but we need to talk about it even more than that so that it becomes a part of everyday discussion, right? We talk about
yeah,
going to the doctor to go
yeah,
get your health checked out,
yeah.
annually or whenever you do it, I'm going to go to the doctor and get my physical. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
that same attention to a mental.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do is not focus on the extreme so much of suicide. I have a
Mm-hmm.
foundation for that. But what is more important is to get people more grounded around, how do I deal with my emotions on an everyday basis, right?
Exactly. So what are some of the techniques that you have used that you found to be very, very useful to keep people, like you said, from those polar extremes? So when
Mhm.
you see something kind of like in the middle, what are some of the middle signs that people need to be aware of if they're experiencing it themselves in who are 50 plus, or if they see someone who's younger, their children or their grandchildren? What are some of the signs that can be not as acute, but can be addressed by someone like yourself, the people
Well,
that you would see?
so the signs and the symptoms, which I mentioned earlier, they start just really by simple things like being isolated, right? And you see someone who's isolating themselves from people when that's not their norm, right? So now that becomes an issue. Human beings are sentient beings, we're feeling beings, we're meant to feel. And when we're not showing emotion, that's another sign when emotions are not being shown. We're not showing emotion, that means that the emotions are being blocked. And when we're blocking any energy at all, emotions are energy in motion, literally,
Right.
right? We're blocking that energy, there's going to be some kind of signal on the outside. So that could the depression where, a person is just not enjoying life the way they used to enjoy it. The things that they used to like if you have a child or an adult who used to like to do one thing, and then all of a sudden they don't want to do it anymore. They're losing interest. They don't want to eat. They don't want to play. All of things are signs and symptoms. And and I want to talk about us as in our wisdom, in our um in our transformative selves. As we age, we too begin to become stuck, and we may become stagnant because we forget that we're free to play, that we're free to
Yes.
love, we're free to
Yes.
laugh, we're free to experiment with different things in life.
Yes.
And so we become stuck in another do loop, right? And on a macro level, that's our life, that shows up as our life. But on a micro level, it shows up in our thoughts. And that's where what I call the cycle of thought, others have called the cycle of thought, comes in, because everything that we ever had seen or experienced in life started somewhere with someone
Yes.
as a thought.
Yes.
And then that thought becomes manifest. So we need to think about more what it is that we're thinking about, because we need to be aware of what we're sending out as energy, because we know that that energy will come back to us. And you know, at this stage in our lives, as wonderful wise souls, we have a treasure of experience, right? We've got insights, we've got this wisdom. And at the same time, at this stage of our journey, we forget that it's ever evolving and that we need to continue to keep growing and building, because as images of the creator, we're built in the image of the creator. So we're creating. And as long as we're
Yeah.
living, we're creating, right?
And we're constantly evolving. I like that concept. I think what happens though is that when people get a certain age, they start listening to their family members, and some of them are well-intentioned and some of them may not be. Well, you don't need to drive anymore. You don't need to travel as much as you used to.
Right.
They start putting these restrictions and constrictions on people. And I think sometimes if a person's mobility is being challenged, then yeah. But if your mobility isn't being challenged, there's nothing that's different except the number that you put on yourself in terms of this word age. And I think sometimes people, and that's one of the wonderful things I love about my podcast, because we're defying that. You're a certain age, so you don't wear certain things. I think certain things should be somewhat age appropriate, but if you desire to wear shorts, wear shorts, or you're a certain age, and so you need to do this with your hair, your clothing, whatever. And there are people who are still creating. Like someone had someone who was on my podcast a week ago mentioned Colonel Sanders in terms of his coming up with the concept of Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't really come up with it, but he was given the credit for it in his 60s.
Right.
And I know Moms Mabley was a comedian in her 70s. And Grandma Moses, I think, started painting in her late 80s. So the whole thing is that we define who we are. We're constantly moving and evolving until we cross over and transition. So I think what you said is very important for us to always keep that in mind. I have one of my podcasters who's a friend of mine, And every year she decides to do something different to enhance her life. She's 62. And so she started to do something that was very adventurous in her 60s. And it's wonderful. It keeps her forever young and vibrant and enthusiastic about life. So I think what you're saying is very important. And I also think self-isolation can be an issue. There are people, as they grow more mature, not old, but more mature, who tend to self-isolate. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Sometimes they don't have family members. But get out there, go to these centers, just go out and walk in the park and just be around people. Do not become sedentary and do not self-isolate. But I think what you're saying is true. So for people who are doing some of those things, how can they seek out your services? What services are you able to help pull them out of that shell or have them not use self-deprecating words and terms about what's going on in their lives?
The primary way that I do that is through my books, and that has been the main focus, because we have to look at life and allow our creative potential to flow, and that's why the topic title is the eternal flow. So how do we get to that eternal flow so that we're continuing to be vibrant and show our glory in all of our unique magnificence, right? So one of the ways is by shifting the paradigm of our perspective, changing those perspectives about what we have been told. As you said,
Yes.
age is a number, and so we look at age differently. You remember when you were 30, you thought that 60 was going to be some old person sitting on the bench, right? Just
Yeah.
sitting there. And that's not the truth of who we are. And so now how do we take that and shift our thoughts around living those vibrant life, that vibrant life? And so, that's where we start to get into the cycle of thought, and that I want to talk a little bit about. But reading books like this is everyday emotional vocabulary that shifts the kaleidoscope of your perspective. And the book speaks to how to make those paradigm shifts around emotions and thoughts that have been defined for us about emotions, right? And just the basic thought that sometimes we think that dense emotions, are working against us when they're not. They are actually working for us. Every emotion has a message, and they work for us, not against. So it's that paradigm shift, right? And then secondly, it's taking that time to just sit and reflect. Meditation, right?
Yeah.
Meditation is so important. Like, whenever somebody says, well, what do you recommend in order for me to anything? My answer is always going to be, one of those points is always going to be meditate, so that you can
Yes.
with yourself and get that message from yourself. So
Yes.
just like in therapy, you're talking to a therapist, and the therapist doesn't tell you what to do. You're talking and communicating with them allows you to come up with what you should do. And it's the same thing with meditation. You're sitting in stillness will bring you messages about what it is that works for you, right?
Yeah. I think that's really important though, because a lot of times people run away from sitting in stillness. We're taught to be on the go, even with your thoughts. When people meditate, there are people, because I teach meditation on Monday evenings via Zoom. And there are people in the beginning who say, oh, I can't really meditate because my mind keeps going hither, thither, and yon. And they're so used to not being still because society tells you you have to do something. You have to always going to go. If not, then especially in our culture, you're lazy. So it's like going countercultural in terms of telling people who are so programmed to be on the move, to be on the go, to slow it down and just to stop and just to breathe. I think breathing would just help you get into the moment, into being mindful, into the now, just stopping and just doing deep breathing. And then from there, people can take it to the next level.
True breath work. And then I also coach. Um, But more than coaching on an individual basis, I like to talk with organizations so that I'm reaching a lot of people at a time. And that is really my goal, to get more out there and talk to youth organizations, go to schools and do more presentations
Mhm.
or Raiysa talks
Mm.
around emotional well-being and wellness. And so yes, that's how I support people.
So so your focus is on youth with this motivational speaking engagements or
My focus is more on organizations, whether it be a youth organization or
mm,
a church or a college. I spoke at Morehouse College previously on the AU Center campus for all of the colleges and universities as well. So yeah, my focus is across the board. When I did work with Young Tiger Foundation specifically, my target market was young Black males. And
mm,
I've branched out to actually do work with children and do this children's book now called Jordan's Journey to Emotion Island, which is targeted towards 5 to 9 year olds, and really get children engaged in knowing what emotions are and what
mhm,
jobs they perform for us, not to us, how they help
mhm,
us move through life and send us messages about which direction to flow. Because if you think about it, your emotions are kind of like the game of hot and cold, right? When you're feeling extremely dense emotions, that means that you're cold and you need to move towards warmer and warmer emotions that will help you keep moving forward in life. And
mhm.
rather than staying stuck in a dense emotion, right? We
So
want,
so I'm sorry. Take us through like a session with you when you talking about hot emotions and whatever is stabilizing. What does that look like?
okay. So that we'll go back to the cycle of thought, right? So we discussed that everything starts with the thought. Yes.
Mm,
Thoughts are thoughts and emotions actually weave the tapestry of your life. So it starts out as a thought, it's intangible, on the non-physical level, and then
mhm,
that thought is something that is fleeting, it's momentary. And I'm gonna read a definition from the book about
okay,
what a thought is, so that we just jump to it in fullness. And thought
okay.
thinking. So thinking is concentrating on one thing long enough to develop an idea about it.
Mm,
Thinking is not regurgitating program information, right? Most of us just think that it's just chatter, right? True
mhm,
thinking is consciously stringing together thoughts using reason and logic to make reasonable choices. This is rational thinking, right?
right.
We do that by evaluating different options and deliberating over the challenges that might come up before us, over those decisions and
Mhm,
plans that we would make around that. But thinking is actively developing a conclusion, right? It's
okay.
dynamic. Thinking is not a static thing. If you thought it yesterday and you're thinking the same thing today and you're not including any further information that came between yesterday, yesteryear, and today, that is not thinking. That's
Mm,
regurgitating old
mhm,
information that's based on the past. So,
mhm,
as I said, a thought is simply a momentary, in this moment, in the here and now, it's a momentary assessment that reflects your current state of being, your current state of conscious balance. How do I feel? What's going on in my life right now? All of these
mhm,
filters are going to help determine what you're thinking, and it's informed by past experience. So what we're really experiencing most of the time is thought chatter. And thought chatter
mhm,
is unfocused thought. That is a replay of old thoughts. 90% of our thoughts are a replay of thoughts. And it's often narrated by our inner censor, the inner critic. And
mhm,
we can recognize that all of our opinions and all of our judgments are not true. Yet we don't have the same recognition about our thoughts. everything you think is not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So when a person is going through this process, then and they're having these irrational thoughts, which create the thoughts create behavior, which leads the behavior leads to consequence. So when a person is having these irrational thoughts, what tools do you give the person to challenge those thoughts and to diminish those thoughts?
Okay, so all along the cycle of thought, as you said, so we start with the thought, becomes an emotion, and then it's a
Mm-hmm.
feeling, it's a belief, it's an attitude or a mood, then that impacts your behavior, which leads to
Mm-hmm.
the personality of the person that you think that you are. And I want to just kind of go into all of that a little deeper, and that because each step of the way, you have an opportunity to change the thought. And the earlier that you catch it, the more energy, the more energized the thought is, and the more that you can spiral up in thought. The
Mm-hmm.
later you catch it in a cycle, or if you never catch the thought that you're thinking, then you don't have an opportunity to change it, and you're actually working in a closed loop. And that's that stagnancy that you see in your life when you become more mature, because you've gotten used to doing things a certain way, and it's harder to change, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say, I have a thought, the world is a horrible place. So as soon as I have that thought, and if I'm feeling horrible, then that thought is going to trigger emotions down a neural network that I've probably been down 90% of the time before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
It's hardwired in your brain. Mm-hmm.
hardwired in the brain. It's called a neural network, and that's going to deliver a feeling. But when I have that thought, if I can catch that thought immediately and I affirm, um, this is this is a wonderful world. My choices are supported by the same force that creates universes, right? Just shift that
Mm-hmm.
thought, and in this world, there's a whole spectrum of things that happen, from the the very bad, horrific, all the way to the most wonderful things. All of those
Yeah.
occur in the world. And
Yeah.
and it's up to me to focus my thoughts, my energies on the things at the end of the spectrum that show me a reflection of more good things in my life.
But emotionally, because yeah, that's a uh, very good explanation of the cognitive thinking and prefrontal lobe and all that. But emotionally, because most people, it takes them a minute before they can think, okay, my thought was irrational, but they can feel it in their
That's the
body.
next step, right? That's the
Yeah,
next step in the
so
cycle, is
so
to
what should they look for in addition to the thought? What's the feeling in the body that they could look for to let them know, my thought is off balance.
yeah, so you know by how you feel, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
the thought feels flat, then you know that that's you're a repeat thought. It's not a highly energized thought, right? If the thought feels unfocused, if you feel like you're just on autopilot, or if it sounds like chatter, or if you're experiencing conflict, then you know that that thought is off balance. If it's even survival based. Like if it's
Mm-hmm.
based on, how do I make it through this thing, through this day, then you know that it is a feeling, an emotion that is not going to help you spiral up.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is like starting as a new thought, then that thought is going to feel more energized. It's going to feel like it has space. With chatter, you have no space. You're in that beta mode, and everything is just, fast, fast, fast. And
Mm-hmm.
when there is space, like let's say you're in alpha brain wave, which is about more creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you're in that void from which creation comes from, right? And you can take a thought, a feeling, a belief to a higher level. And if it feels clear, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
that, it comes in with clarity, then you know that it is a more energized feeling, or whether it's the thought, the emotion, or the feeling, any one of those, they go through this test, right?
Mm,
And
mhm,
if it feels like it's going to help you to grow, if it's growth-based, then that's another indicator that it's a thought that helps you move forward. So is it passing the filter of being a repeat thought, or is it a new thought, an energized
mhm,
thought, a new
mhm,
emotion, energized emotion or a feeling? And then another tool is to realize what it is that emotions are teaching us. Because remember, I said emotions are messengers. So something else that the book deals with is the major emotions. So for example, from the book, sadness. Sadness's message is that there's been a significant loss. And so your action is, as a result, is to grieve, you
mhm,
want to heal, and you may withdraw or freeze, right? So fear tells us that what we need to overcome, and it shows us what we need to overcome in order to get to a balanced state to be safe. All of these major emotions are survival based, but fear especially.
mhm,
Just to make just a thought, we've been in an era of survival based emotions. We are moving, as humans are evolving and growing, to an era of higher emotion and higher thought. And so in order to do that, you have to be aware of and get the messages that these emotions are giving us so that we can move through them and come out on the other end of the spectrum with a higher.
mhm,
So the action for fear is to urgently get to safety. That's survival, right? And that's fight or flight.
mhm,
Another major emotion is anger, and anger is telling us that something is blocking us from getting to what we want, um,
okay.
or something is attacking us, and
Mhm,
right. And so our instinctual action is protection.
mhm,
Want to protect ourselves. And one of the ways that we protect ourselves is to strike first, right? To lash out. And
yeah,
that is fight.
yeah,
And then we have shame. Shame basically just is saying that others don't, we perceive that others don't approve of our action, whatever the action may be. And so
mhm.
what we do is to hide it, we'll repress it, and we'll project it, we'll blame,
Onto someone else.
right,
Mhm,
project it onto someone else. And that is another form of fight, to project it onto someone
mhm,
else.
mhm.
Guilt,
Well,
another.
it's self-denial. I think that this is really wonderful. Well, how is you as a spiritual coach or leader or facilitator with this? Because it seems as though you're facilitating the inner landscape for people so that they can get in touch with how they feel, what they feel, so that they can know how to
Mhm,
monitor it and navigate through life. And in this country, what's happened, which is interesting, is people are desensitized. They're being more desensitized and more robotic. And
mhm.
so they don't know how they feel in some cases. They don't know the words to put to this, excuse me, this emotion that they are feeling. And so in your work, do you also help guide them to get in touch with those feelings that they have repressed, suppressed, or didn't even know that were there?
Definitely, that's necessary. And part of getting there is dealing with limited beliefs, right? And that's the
Mm-hmm,
first thing that I talk about in our exploration session. Like, what do you think might be holding you back from achieving your goals? Because definitely, if you could do them, you would have done it already. So what
mm-hmm,
do you perceive as the obstacles in your way? So if you start
mm-hmm,
with limiting beliefs, then that goes backwards into feelings, into emotions, into thoughts, and then
mm-hmm,
start peeling the layers of the onion away to get to whatever that limiting belief may be. Now, the goal is not to really say per se fix something, because none of us are broken. We are having a life experience where we're exploring creation, and
Mhm.
everything is a learning and experience. And sometimes we choose to learn from experiences, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's a dance of moving forward, moving backward,
Mhm.
sometimes we're doing that in life. Yet at the end of the day, our goal is expansion.
Right, right,
Have all of these experiences to
right.
expand, not to be fixed, to
Mhm.
have a higher experience of life, to have, and sometimes it's not even vibrance. Well, it's always vibrancy, but it may not be that vibrancy that we would call good or bad,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
you are expanding in any experience. So that's a paradigm shift as well. Like with the death of my son, huge expansion, the most pain that I could ever feel. The expansion that came out of that,
Mhm.
tremendous. The
Mhm.
information that I've been able to share because of that transform.
Yeah.
So it's and it's so it's not always the good things, so-called good things, that allow us the most expansion in life. So those
Yeah.
are all the type of things that we tap into and look for ways to shift the paradigm, to find the light in the cloud, what appear to be clouds, that's in those shadows, the
Mhm.
shadows, there's the huge ability to transform and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. There is when you're doing the shadow work and looking at the things that you push to the side and not desire to observe or to acknowledge, because for whatever reason, sometimes painful, sometimes it's scary, because then it means you have to really dig in and do some deeper work. And people like projecting, like you said at one point, projecting their stuff into other people so they don't have to take personal responsibility for
Mhm.
what's going on in their lives. And I think that's great. Did you, in the remaining minutes that we have, did you, I know you showed the cover of one book, did you desire to pull some things out of the book? I know I heard you talk about the
Emotion, yeah.
different types of emotions and things. So in about 3 minutes or 4 minutes at the most, what would you like to leave with our listening audience? Say, okay, I would like to call Miss Zay, I'm gonna call you Zaire, Miss Nazir. And what would a typical client, or is there such a thing for you, call you to seek out your services?
What would they call me?
And I was like, why would they call? What
Oh,
are your specialties in which you could have them? Because you talked about it, but in terms of our closing points,
I
if a
think
person's looking to seek out your services, what's the
really
typical kind of client if there is one?
people who are feeling overwhelmed for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, whether it's work or transition from work, because going from retirement, for example, going from working into retirement is a really stressful time where you need to make significant paradigm shifts about who you
Mm-hmm.
are, what you are, what you think. Your whole being, the personality that you have concretized has to shift. And
Right.
making that shift, you have to rethink, okay, what can I do? What should I
Mm-hmm.
do? Is there a should? What do I eat? What's best for me? What do I wear? We decided what we should wear, what we should buy, where we should live, who our friends are. So now, you know, I'm working with people who are going through transitional stages, and people who want to expand and power up to the next level. And so there's that shifting of paradigm, the shifting of
Mm-hmm.
what you've been thinking, what you've been believing, how you've been
Mm-hmm.
feeling. All of that needs to change so that you can take things to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So, and the age range, I know you are looking at people who are in the 50 plus age range, and then Or what's your other, because I think you said
So
about
I really, you know, my
three
my
different demographics.
my main target audience are the young people before they get messed up.
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, people who are looking to expand to the next level. And so that could be, if it's career wise, it could be, you could be 30, 40, or if it's post career, like, you know, as I said,
Mhm.
retirement and rebuilding yourself, rebranding yourself to yourself first. And
Right.
showing,
Begins to self, do the inner work.
yeah, and then showing that to the
Yeah.
world. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you, Raisa, and congratulations, kudos on your wonderful 3 books and your practice and your foundation. I think you're doing an amazing job, and you desire to share your expertise with this listening audience. So people in the audience, feel free to get in touch with Raisa. Raisa, give them your contact information, and we're going to have her website also included in writing, but give them your contact.
So it's Raiysa, Raiysa, and maybe you can put it in the chat for those who are live. Raiysa at thinkandbewellnow.com. And my social media handle is at Think Be Well Now. Think Be Well Now is my social media handle. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram and YouTube. And
Okay.
yes, I just and the goal really, really is to help people to feel their way into alignment, whatever that means for their next level of advancement. You know, we're always recalibrating. So how do we do that? And
Yeah,
really,
that's true. I like that. We are always recalibrating. And so she's one of the facilitators to assist you on this wonderful journey called life as you do the paradigm shifts and as you recalibrate. Love it.
yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
so please feel free to get in touch with Raisa. She gave you the contact information. We're going to have it listed also when we post this wonderful podcast. So you can be in touch with her. And if you have an organization and you would like for her to be a speaker, definitely get in touch with her. If you are connected to a church or an educational institution, anything, you have a group of women, group of men, mature, seasoned people who need to hear a message, whatever, definitely get in touch with her. You will be quite pleased. So Raisa, thank you so very much for spending the time with the Great Lives on the Rise audience. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you.
Yes, it's definitely a journey of rediscovery and empowerment.
Yeah, we thank you. And her cup is on its way. I thank her for agreeing to do this podcast before she got her merchandise, because she ordered her merchandise. I said, okay, would you like to do the podcast? She said, yeah, okay. So it's on the way. And in the meantime, Gray Lives on the Rise t-shirt is available. And we have more merchandise that's in the store that you will be very impressed with and love it. So thank you so very much for joining us, everyone. And until next time, be well and namaste.
Namaste,
Take
namaste.
care. Have an enjoyable week. Take care. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Gray Lives on the Rise, being brought to you by Jamila Scents, which is the product line of Oyende Enterprises. Jamila Scents is a 100% natural aromatherapy line that heals the mind, body, and soul. This episode of Gray Lives on the Rise was intended to uplift you, to inspire you, and to motivate you. Please tell all of your friends, family members, and anyone you know who's 50 plus, who's living a vibrant life and interested in doing more and enjoying life even to its fullest. So thank you, and please subscribe, like, and comment on this video and all our videos. Thank you, and until next time, until our next podcast, namaste and be well.